Today we come to the 8th plague, and the 8th and the 9th plague are both in Exodus chapter 10. The 8th plague is the plague of locusts. We'll pick it up at verse 1. Now the Lord said to Moses, "Go into Pharaoh. I have hardened his heart and the hearts of the servants, that I may show these signs of mine before him." And I noticed here in verse 2, a different dimension is brought out on the 8th plague, that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's son the mighty things I have done in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, and you may know that I am the Lord. Here we see that the plagues, which were 10, 10th being the death of the firstborn, Exodus chapter 12. Not only were they to teach Pharaoh who is Yahweh or the Lord, they were to be a future witness to the generations of children, the children of Israel and the Israelites, to the mighty things that God has done. You notice in the verse, it says, my signs which I have done among them. Whenever you go over to the Psalm, think of Psalm 105 and 106. In that particular section of Psalms, you remember there's a recounting of the history of Israel, and these plagues are mentioned there. In fact, in Deuteronomy chapter 4, I think it's verse 34, it's also mentioned to the next generation. You remember the 40 years they wandered in the wilderness, and that generation died off. But in Deuteronomy chapter 4, they were reminded that this is the mighty things that God did. I'll take it down to verse 3. So Moses and Aaron came into Pharaoh and said to him, "Thus says the Lord God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Or else, if you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory or into your land." Here we notice that at this point in verse 3, the message that God gave Moses and Aaron to go into Pharaoh is that Pharaoh would not humble himself. And really with Pharaoh, what we see, it was pride that stopped him from acknowledging the Lord. We see that he hardened his heart. We see that he was prideful, and we see that instead of relenting, he was stubborn and rebellious, and continued to harden his heart, really right through, even past the plagues as well, by chasing the Israelites when they left Egypt. And then verse 8, Moses and Aaron were brought again to Pharaoh, and he said to them, "Go serve the Lord. Who are the ones that are going?" Moses says they're all going. Then we see in verse 10, and we don't get it in the New King James translation, other translations, we see the heart of Pharaoh in verse 10. In this translation it says, "The Lord had better be with you, and I'll let you and your little ones go." But actually in the original Hebrew, it's really a blasphemous thing that Pharaoh is saying. Is really using God's name in a blasphemous way. And we actually comes across better in the next verse. Verse 11, "Not so. Go now, you who are men, and serve the Lord, for this is what you desired." And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. Of course, then God instructs Moses to stretch his hand out over the land of Egypt for the locusts. The locusts come, they devour everything. Verse 14, "The locusts went up over the land of Egypt and rested on all the territory of Egypt. They were very severe. Previously there had not been no such locusts as they, nor such shall they be after them. They covered the land." Then verse 16, Pharaoh calls for Moses in haste and says, "I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Please forgive my sin only this once. Entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death only." Moses goes out praise to God, verse 18. And the Lord sends a strong west wind which took the locusts away and blew them into the Red Sea, and there remained not one locust in the territory of Egypt, clearly showing that this locust plague was by God. But then, of course, the usual recourse of Pharaoh. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart this time, and he did not let the children of Israel go, and that leads into the 9th plague, which we'll pick up in a separate video. Thank you for listening.